Dubai is dying. Read that again. Not collapsing. Not at war. Not bankrupt. Dying. The slow, invisible, financially precise way that cities built on promises die. One departing flight, one relocated family office, one updated risk model at a time. The beaches are emptier than they were 2 years ago. The malls that were packed with tourists from October through March are running at fractions of their former footfall. The residential towers that were sold as the world's most desirable addresses have vacancy rates their developers will not publish. The flights that used to arrive full from London and Moscow and Mumbai are arriving with empty seats that the airline is selling at discounts that would have been unthinkable 18 months ago. Nobody announced it. There was no press conference. No government admitted it. Dubai does not do admissions. Dubai does announcements, record valuations, new towers, golden visa expansions, fireworks visible from orbit. What Dubai never does is tell you when the calculation has changed. The calculation has changed. This is the story of how the most aggressively marketed city on Earth, the city that replaced oil with trust and sand with skyline, the city that absorbed the world's fleeing capital for 40 years and called it growth, arrived at the moment that every city built on a promise eventually arrives at, the moment the promise expires. To understand what is ending, you have to understand what was built. Dubai's founding myth is one of the most remarkable stories in modern urban history. In 1960, it was a trading port of 40,000 people on a creek in the Arabian Gulf. No oil, no agriculture, no strategic military value. No reason on paper to become anything other than what it was. A modest regional market town that would grow modestly as the region grew. Sheikh Rashid bin Said Al Maktoum had a different idea. He looked at a map and saw something that geographers had always known, but that no urban planner had yet monetized. Dubai sat at the precise center of the world's most valuable transit corridor. Within 8 hours by air from Dubai, you could reach 2/3 of the entire human population. Europe, South Asia, East Africa, Central Asia, the entire Middle East, all of it within the range of a single commercial flight. He dredged the creek, built a port, built an airport, told the world Dubai was open. The world arrived. Not all at once. The arrival was a trickle at first. Regional traders, Indian merchant families, who had been crossing the Arabian Gulf for centuries. Iranian businessmen who preferred a jurisdiction without the complications of their own government. Then, the trickle became a flow as the regional geopolitics began generating exactly the kind of instability that Dubai had positioned itself to absorb. The Lebanese Civil War in 1975, the Iranian Revolution in 1979, the Iran-Iraq War through the 1980s, the Gulf War in 1991, the Palestinian Intifadas, September 11th and the asset freezes that followed, the Arab Spring beginning in 2010, the Syrian Civil War, the Yemen conflict, the Ukraine invasion of 2022. Every regional catastrophe sent a wave of capital and people toward the one address in the Middle East that had managed to remain standing above the chaos. Every war, every revolution, every sanctions regime, every frozen bank account in every country where the political situation had deteriorated, all of it drove money and people and institutions toward Dubai. Dubai did not cause the instability around it. It simply built a city specifically designed to benefit from that instability. And for 40 years, the instability obliged. In August 2025, Dubai crossed 4 million residents for the first time in its history. The announcement came with the standard fanfare, record growth, record golden visa issuances, record millionaire arrivals. The city was accelerating. The forecasts were being revised upward. 5 million by 2030, 6 million by 2040. What the announcement did not include was a breakdown of what those 4 million people actually meant. 92% of Dubai's population is expatriate. That number has been consistent for a decade. And it is the defining demographic fact of the city, and the one that its boosters almost never lead with. Because once you understand what it means, everything else about Dubai's vulnerability becomes immediately clear. A city that is 92% expatriate is not a city in the conventional sense. It is a holding pattern. It is 3.68 million people who arrived from somewhere else because the calculation was favorable. Better pay, no income tax, better infrastructure, the absence of the specific instabilities afflicting their home countries, and who will leave the moment the calculation changes. They have no citizenship. They have no permanent right of residence independent of employment or investment. They have no generational attachment. They have no grandparents buried in Dubai soil. No, they have no childhood memories of the creek or the souks or the neighborhoods that existed before the towers. They have a visa tied to a job or an investment. And when the job ends or the investment underperforms, or the geopolitical risk premium rises above the tax advantage, they recalculate. The 4 million figure was real. The solidity it implied was not. Among those 4 million were approximately 81,200 millionaires, 237 centimillionaires, 20 billionaires. These were the anchor tenants of Dubai's entire economic model. The high net worth individuals whose presence attracted the wealth management firms, whose presence attracted the hedge funds, whose presence attracted the private banks, whose presence attracted the international law firms, whose presence made the commercial real estate viable and the luxury retail profitable, and the hotel occupancy sustainable. Remove the millionaires and you do not just remove the millionaires. You remove the ecosystem that the millionaires supported. You remove the infrastructure of financial services that justified Dubai's claim to be a global financial center rather than a large shopping mall with an observation deck. The millionaires were the keystone, and keystones, by definition, are load-bearing. On February 28, 2026, Iran launched 189 ballistic missiles, 941 drones, and 3 cruise missiles at the United Arab Emirates. It was retaliation for Operation Roaring Lion, a coordinated U.S.-Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear and military infrastructure that had occurred the night before. The physical damage was limited. 3 dead, on 58 injured, debris from intercepted missiles striking the Burj Al Arab, smoke near the base of the Burj Khalifa, Terminal 3 at Dubai International Airport struck and briefly evacuated, Jebel Ali Port with a berth on fire, the U.S. consulate hit by a drone. The air defense systems worked. Most of what Iran fired was knocked down. The UAE military, which had invested a decade and billions of dollars in layered THAAD and Patriot battery systems, performed at a level that military analysts described as genuinely impressive. It did not matter, because Dubai's economy does not run on military assessments. It runs on the decisions of 81,200 people who woke up on the morning of March 1st, 2026, and opened their phones to footage of smoke rising from the most famous skyline in the Middle East. People who had chosen Dubai specifically saw them precisely exclusively because it was safe. Not safer than average. Not relatively safe. Safe in an absolute sense. Safe in a way that no other city in the region could credibly claim. That safety was the product. Not the beaches, not the tax regime, not the golden visa. The safety was what made all of those other things worth paying for. Pay enough for a beach in a city that might be bombed, and you have purchased a liability dressed as a luxury. On February 28th, the product failed its most basic quality test, and in a consumer economy built on perception, a product that fails its quality test does not get a second chance. It gets replaced. The searches for Singapore residency spiked in the 72 hours following the strikes. Searches for Portugal Golden Visa and Malta residency and Swiss residence permit spiked. As real estate inquiry volumes for Monaco, Zurich, and Lisbon spiked. The financial advisors who serve the high net worth community in Dubai reported that their phones did not stop ringing for 3 days. The millionaires were not panicking. Millionaires do not panic. They calculate. And the calculation they were running was the same calculation they had always run, the one that had brought them to Dubai in the first place. Tax advantage versus risk. Convenience versus uncertainty. Premium pricing versus what the premium actually buys. The calculation was producing different answers than it had produced on February 27th. The 2026 population exodus from Dubai will not look like an exodus. It will not look like Beirut in 1975, with families loading belongings into cars and driving toward the border. It will not look like footage from a war zone. It will not look like anything that a camera can capture. It will look like a flight booking, an unfilled lease renewal, a school withdrawal form, a business registration in a different jurisdiction, a golden visa application in Portugal submitted by someone who already has a Dubai residency and is acquiring a backup, a private banker who moves their book of business to Singapore because 3 of their top clients asked them to. It will happen quietly, administratively, in the language of corporate relocation packages and employment contracts and real estate listings that sit on the market longer than they used to. It will be visible in the data, in transaction volumes, in school enrollment numbers, in restaurant reservation rates, in the number of flights arriving from London and Moscow with unfilled premium cabins. But it will not be visible in the streets in any dramatic, documentable way. This is how cities like Dubai hollow out, not dramatically, bureaucratically. The British community in Dubai, 300,000 people, was the first to be publicly targeted by its own government for extraction. The British Foreign Secretary established support frameworks within 48 hours of the February strikes to help UK nationals leave the Gulf region. That is not the British government abandoning its citizens in a crisis. That is the British government signaling, clearly and officially, that the Gulf region now carries a risk classification that warrants a government-organized departure infrastructure. When a G7 government publicly builds you an exit ramp, it is telling you something about the destination you are currently in. The Russian community in Dubai, estimated at somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 people following the 2022 Ukraine invasion wave, arrived precisely because Dubai was the one jurisdiction where Russian capital could land without Western sanctions complications. That calculation remains intact legally. But a community of people who left one unstable situation to find stability in Dubai is now resident in a city that has demonstrated on a February Saturday afternoon that its stability has limits. The Indian community, the largest national group in Dubai, exceeding 1 million people, is more permanently embedded than most. Indian families have been trading in the Gulf for generations. The connections are deep, the business networks are extensive, the cultural infrastructure, temples, schools, grocery stores, media, cricket leagues, is well established. They are not leaving quickly. But even within the Indian community, the upper tier, the business owners, the senior executives, the investors, is diversifying, adding Singapore as a secondary base, adding London, adding the backup they always meant to acquire but never quite got around to because Dubai felt stable enough that a backup seemed unnecessary. The backup is now necessary. Everyone knows it. Nobody's announcing it,